It's a real pleasure to be here at the RTS Cambridge Convention. Whether I'll be feeling the same in about 30 minutes' time remains to be seen. From Fireman Sam to Jane Bond and every gender definition in between, there is one man who is guaranteed to call you out if he thinks social change has quite literally gone nuts. It is, of course, Piers Morgan. Now, I've known Piers for many years. He was fairly instrumental in me meeting my husband. We were at an awards ceremony one evening and my husband was at his table and he introduced us, and here we are 10 years later. However, as he smiles at me from the side of the stage, he reminds me that the only other couple he introduced was indeed Sir Paul McCartney and Heather Mills, and sadly, we know what happened there. But like we say, 10 years later, and it's all going strong. Anyway, he polarizes opinion like no other. Whether you're reacting against or reveling in Piers's outpourings, his views have become unmissable. We'll be meeting him in just a moment. First, though, let's see Piers in full flow.
The world's gone nuts. Good morning. I mean, they stink, right, for one.
They're delicious.
Right?
Vegetarian sausage is nicely flavoured.
Do you know what I find really annoying? Millennials who are oversensitive. People who can't have an argument annoy me. We all have to be saved from ourselves. We're all dreadful people.
Why are you
terrible,
so
toxic people. They completely destroyed Percy Pig, right? Just to cater for a few vegans.
Oh, Piers, don't be obtuse.
Isn't that the whole setup of the show, that you're trying to seduce?
The whole thing's called Love Island. They go on there to have sex with random strangers.
Exactly.
That's the whole point of it. Here's a shock for people. Pigs are made of meat. I can't do it. How long is this on for? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bang! Oh, for God's sake! I mean, how hard can this be? Seriously. Does anyone really think James Bond himself would ever be seen dead in a baboose? Daniel Gray should be fired for that. And will my head be cut off? Now you want to get rid of Fireman Sam? I ain't playing and I may just take my ball and go home. Just all of you, you've been ignored. You've been disenfranchised. And it's for you that I'm furious.
And we wouldn't have him any other way. Ladies and gentlemen, Piers Morgan. Hello. Well.
I do actually look a bit unhinged in that clip, so I'd just like to apologise. It's only when you see yourself back you realise, yeah, the world's gone nuts and I've led the way. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone.
Do you wake up in the morning and decide what you want to rant about that day, or
well, I used to run a daily paper, and of course the whole point of that was that every morning you'd have to get up and, you know, if you're running a newsroom of 400 people, get everyone going with your opinions. That's how newspapers are done. So I think it was always in my DNA to just be hugely opinionated about absolutely everything. But it can be, you know, it's not everyone's cup of tea, obviously, but I try and work myself into indignant rages on most subjects.
And then put a poll out on the television. And actually, a lot of the times, people come back agreeing with you.
Well, we live in this, the world gone nuts thing came about because we live in a very weird world now, don't we, where absolutely everybody appears to be incredibly offended by everything. And it means that comedians can't operate anymore because every joke is offensive. It means that Donald Trump comes along and you're in one tribe or the other. There can be no middle ground. Brexit happens here, Boris Johnson. Again, it's tribal. And someone described it to me as 2,000 years ago, we used to literally live in tribes. And you'd be in your tribe and you'd never leave your own area. So you'd only mix with your own people. And you all look the same, you dress the same, you have the same values, the same opinions, same conversations. And then very slowly but surely, we all went out into the big bad world and we met other tribes. And they would look different, they would speak differently, they'd have different opinions. And both tribes, at this moment of meeting these weird other people, decided the only possible way to resolve things was to kill each other. And that's where we've gone back to, haven't we? Driven by social media, we're now living in tribes. And the tribes are completely indoctrinated. There's no way out of them. You can't be in the middle. You can't say, well, Trump has good points and bad points, or Boris is good or bad on this. You're in the tank for them or you're in the tank against them. And I don't think that's healthy. I think it's really bad for democracy. And I think there's also this whole race to social change, much of which I completely embrace. And I'm not going to sit here and defend anything that even whiffs of racism, sexism, or anything like that. But the kind of radical, zealous nature of debate these days about whether it's veganism or gender fluidity or whatever it may be, has also got completely out of hand, where people are not allowed to debate it, you're not allowed to have a conversation, you're not allowed to actually say, well, hang on a second, what about the repercussions of this? If one tribe decides that you're wrong, you have to be cancelled, taken off the airways, you have to be destroyed, your lives ruined, because somebody has decided they don't agree with you. And it's not about things which are genuinely, properly unacceptable and defensive. Often it's about stuff where someone's just decided they find something offensive. And we've got to somehow get back, I think, to a world where we can have proper conversation and debate again. And that's what we try and do on Good Morning Britain. I don't assume I'm right about everything. I mean,
But
I can be proven wrong, but I'm certainly prepared to have someone in front of me and respect their opinion and listen to the argument and be persuaded. We have got to get back to that, I think, and I think that the gathering here with so much collective power on the airways, we've got to encourage that. Because otherwise, where do we go? We go to a place where Twitter wakes up after the referendum and Trump's election, and they go, well, how the fuck did that happen? Everyone on my Twitter feed agrees with me. But the Twitter feed is not the public. The public is a mass group of people, most of whom are not on Twitter. So anyway, that's where the world's gone nuts idea came from. And I think it's a problem.
And do you think that problem, and you've mentioned this certainly a lot on air, is in fact down to the snowflake generation? You've brought the snowflake term onto GMB quite a bit, in fact, and you'll be honest and say that there's an annoyance, but also a bit of a delight in that generation. But do you think they're part of the problem? Is there?
Well, as a father of 4 kids, I think we've just gone ridiculously soft. I think we're now breeding a generation who are encouraged to think there's no such thing as a loss. You know, in schools now, you can't not win. You get a participation prize. Everyone's a winner. But the real world, as we all know, is not like that. The real world is about winning and losing. Everyone in this room has won and lost. Business deals, TV shows, some work, some don't. You have to go through failure, I think, to be any good. You know, I've learned far more from failure than I've ever done from success. What are we doing when all our kids just win all the time, or think they do? They come 25th in a race and they get a medal. Why? Why do we give them a medal? I don't give my kids a medal when they come 25th. I go, what the hell did you come 25th? And I think, again, we've got to get back to a more competitive spirit. The snowflake generation, they hate being called snowflakes. Of course they do. They hate everything. And they're frightened by everything, and they're offended by everything, and they're sort of, you know, anxiety rates are going through the roof. And the reason is because they've had it so easy. Let's be completely clear about life today. In recorded history of planet Earth, it's never been a safer time to be alive. There are fewer wars than in recorded history. People are living longer than in recorded history, and they are living in a healthier way than in recorded history. There is less poverty than in recorded history. On almost every single box you would want to tick, which should make you feel happy about life, is ticked. This is the best time, statistically, to ever be alive. Yet, if you talk to the younger generation, this is the worst time every minute of their lives to ever exist. And they have anxiety about absolutely everything. And partly that is down to the way we, in my opinion, are educating them. We are just going soft. And it's a global thing, and I don't know who wins here. No, the kids don't win. They get covered in cotton wool, and they come out the other end, and they go, well, hang on, the real world seems awful. Well, it would do, wouldn't it?
But there are lots
if you get a show that gets, 20,000 viewers and gets cancelled, no one gives you a participation prize. You get a call from somebody in a big building and you get sent home. And that's it. And that's reality.
But it is a slightly different time, Piers. And we talk about social media, as you do a lot.
Yeah.
And you're heavily involved in it. personally. And that does change the landscape, I think, a lot for young people. And we talk about bullying online. We talk about different issues that certainly weren't there when we were younger.
Yeah.
So do we naturally just sound like old people now by saying, oh, you young ones, you have it so easy and you don't realise it? Is that just the conversation that's been going on for generations? Young people think they have it tough and the older think you've got it easy.
The only thing on bullying that's changed is the bullying can go on through the night when someone gets home. You know, when bullying used to happen in my school all the time, I'm sure everyone else's school, but when you got through the door of your home, you were safe. No one could get to you.
And it's not the case.
Now they can get to you through your phone. They can get to you through your Instagram. That is a real problem. And I completely accept that. That, I'm sure, raises anxiety levels. But you know, I was out with my kids in the summer on a boat, cruising around. The nightmare of trying to post a picture to any form of social media of my sons who are 26, 22, and 18. This had to go through about 40 different forms of filter.
That's stressful in itself.
But it's ridiculous. So what are you doing?
Do you filter your photos?
And they're trying to create a false kind of perfection. And I said, it doesn't exist.
Do you filter your photos?
I do not filter myself, no. What you see is what you get. It's not...
I just thought I'd check.
Not particularly appetizing, but you know what? It's me. It's really me. No one meets me and goes, bloody hell, he's shocking in real life. But these well, some do. But the millennials, I mean, everywhere they go, it must be, God, you look nothing like your pictures. One more surprised they've been filtered 40 times. So again, you have to take, I mean, it's a very vain society we're growing now, where everyone has to look perfect. And again, the rise in plastic surgery, the rise in all that kind of stuff, none of it's real. And we've got to get back to reality, or I don't know where it all ends.
You mentioned Trump there.
Yeah.
You've got a very special relationship with him. I think that's fair enough to say. Going
He's
back
a friend
many
of mine,
years, you would class him, yes, as a friend. Where do you stand on him as a person, as a president, and our relationship with America, in fact, because of what he does?
Well, I wouldn't vote for Trump. He's not my politics. I've always said that. I just predicted he was going to win. And I mainly predicted it because all of my liberal friends, and I consider myself a liberal, spent all their time howling at me about how he was obviously going to lose, and Hillary was the anointed one. And I kept saying, you haven't been to Middle America, have you? You have no idea what you're talking about. Have you been to Florida? Have you been to Texas? Have you been to Alabama? Do you know what they think and care about this? Do you know what they think of Trump? Hadn't got a clue. And also, I wasn't taken in by the Obama years in the way that my liberal friends were taken in. You know, if I say to my liberal friends, how many illegal immigrants did Barack Obama deport in 8 years? They'll look at me and go, sorry? I said, come on, it's a statistical fact. How many illegal immigrants did Barack Obama deport in 8 years? And the answer is 3 million. The greatest record of deportations in the history of the United States. Nobody knows that. Nobody cared. Nobody was ranting about that or protesting. My liberal friends didn't care. They didn't care that he campaigned in 2008-09 to shut down Guantanamo Bay, which was an illegal torture chamber, and it's still open now. They didn't care that he would go after every mass shooting and put his arm around the victims and tell them, I'm going to get something done, and then just gave up. And his second to last State of the Union address never mentioned the word gun once. Gave 2 paragraphs to Ebola, which had killed 2 people. 32,000 people died that year from guns in America. You know, I could take drone strikes and bombs dropped. Obama dropped 21,000 bombs in his last year. All-time American record. None of this cared. No liberals cared. He was Saint Barack. And now we have the devil Trump. And I say neither is actually what I think the general populace perceive them to be. I don't think Obama was that great. And I don't think Trump was as bad as liberals make him out to be. And in fact, the over-demonization of someone like Trump fuels and helps him. It rallies his base, it increases his support, and it makes it look like it's all personal and people just hate him. And that's fine, but that's not going to beat him. You know, right now, I would lay even money Trump's going to get re-elected. And the liberal world will not understand why. And I would like to tell them. So if you want to queue up outside, because I'm imagining there aren't many Trump fans in here, I'll tell you. And it's because the way to combat Trump is not to howl at him all day long and tell him what a monster he is. That helps him. Same with Brexit here. If you demonize the Brexit supporters, if you tell them they're idiots and racists and buffoons and so on, just makes them stronger. If there was another referendum tomorrow, Leave would win by a mile. No liberals believe me, but watch, just watch. The fury, if Brexit doesn't get implemented, will know no bounds, and they will come out in vast numbers. And no one can tell me 17.5 million people are stupid, racist idiots. They're not. They're actually British people entitled to their view. But liberals have become so self-righteous. They don't just think they're right, they know they're right. And everybody else is not just wrong, they must be eliminated, cancelled, destroyed, finished, buried, vilified, told how stupid they are. Okay, we'll see how that goes. See how it goes in 2020. Because I don't see a candidate yet that can beat Trump. He's out there every week doing his rallies. So I say to liberals, look, I can explain Trump to you, and I can warn you about him, but I can't tell you how to run a campaign against him, except the current strategy is not going to work. It ain't going to work. Stop the over-demonization. Stop exploding with rage every time he breaks wind or cracks an obvious joke or whatever it may be, and just calm down and work out how to beat him. Otherwise, you're facing 5 more years. And I don't think liberals can handle it. I think they're literally going to see their spleens erupting in a global explosion, which will make the apocalypse seem like a tea party.
Do you think he actually listens to you?
Trump?
Yeah.
I know he does.
So you are responsible for something.
He follows 33 human beings on Twitter, and I'm one of them. I'm the only Brit he follows. He knows more about Arsenal and cricket than you can possibly imagine. Certainly more than he'd like to know. But no, I'll give you an example. Was over trophy hunting. I did a column about trophy hunting and urged him to take action. And within 3 weeks, he had taken action to ban trophy hunting. I was very pleased about that, in the particular one we were talking about. On guns, for example, I interviewed him in Davos after the terrible massacre in Las Vegas. And I had talked to him many times about guns. He supported the assault weapons ban previously in the mid-90s. So I knew his heart's not really in this NRA bullshit, but he goes along with it because they bring him 5 million votes. But I said to him, look, you're a logical person. The guy in Las Vegas had 52 guns. So he got around the FBI rules, which are that it flags up a warning if you buy more than 2. He went in 26 times and bought 2 guns. So he avoided any kind of check. And there he was, and he converted 13 AR-15 assault rifles into illegal machine guns with bump fire stock, which you just attach to the guns. And he rained machine guns down on 20,000 people. And it was the worst mass shooting in American history. And I said to Trump, explain to me what purpose bump fire stock serves other than turning legal weapons into illegal weapons. And he couldn't. And 3 weeks ago, Trump announced the ban on bump fire stock. It's a small thing. It's a small thing, but it helps. And it's more that's been achieved on gun control in America than anything Obama achieved in 8 years. And I've heard all the excuses, but Obama, for his first year and a half, had control of all parts of Congress. He could have done something then. He chose not to. So I'm not as enamored by Saint Barack as others. And on Trump, I say give him the credit when he does something right, because otherwise the howling carries no weight. You've got to try and be more fair-minded, even if you hate the guy.
Well, we have a lot of Americans in the audience, I know that. And we're going to put some questions to all of you, if indeed you would like to ask Piers a question. I'm guessing quite a few if you would. If you wouldn't mind just raising your hands, and when we do come to you, if you just tell us your name and where you come from. Will I start with you, sir? Yes? Thank you very much. There's a mic on the way.
Thank you. Hello, Piers. I'm Mark from Circus. I just wondered your view. Do you think the world will be a better or worse place without the internet?
Well, what the internet's done is it's sort of inflamed everything into this tribalism, which is hysterical. And I mean, this morning, Laura Kuenssberg, probably the most impartial, brilliant correspondent in British politics, is the subject of a Sack Laura Kuenssberg campaign over a quite pathetic thing on the internet, where she just pointed out that the guy that had it out with Boris in a hospital had himself gone on Twitter and revealed who he was and said, this is why I did it. And she said, this is the guy. And for that, she has to be cancelled. So it's the hysteria is what the internet fuels. And the internet, in many ways, is fantastic. I think Twitter's amazing. As a research tool for journalists, just the most incredible thing. But it carries with it, it's a cesspit too, utter cesspit. You know, I've got nearly 7 million followers now, not that I like to talk about that. But the truth about that is you get a lot of complete, Neanderthals just abusing left, right, and center. And I don't know how Twitter can regulate it better, but they've got to try. Because Instagram, by comparison, is a much softer platform, much nicer place to communicate. But yeah, I think the internet's amazing, but it's early days with the internet historically. And we've got to do more to try and de-troll it and clean it up, because I think a lot of people find it too much.
Your way of dealing with a lot of things is by retweeting and then shaming them as best
Well, I
you
like to
possibly
correct
can.
their spelling. The good thing about trolls
Yes,
is that they are basically...
the grammar police kicks
well, they're
in.
basically idiots, and none of them know how to spell "your" in any proper context. So my daily correction of the inability to spell "your" is one of the joys of my life. So I like to listen. I've got the skin of 1,000 rhinoceroses, so I don't care. But I know friends of mine, Susanna, who I work with, who was here yesterday, she takes it very personally. She gets reflected abuse because of me. If I'm railing about vegan sausage rolls, which, by the way, are something to get seriously angry about, or James Bond and a papoose, if I'm railing about that, she gets abused because she's sitting next to me. Well, that's ridiculous. She always disagrees with me about that stuff anyway. So it's messy at the moment.
Is that enough? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you.
Hi, Robin Britton. Oh, Robin Britton from the RTS down south. Piers, you're right. Trump has now 47. He follows 47 people. He has 84 million followers.
Well, they're not all people. A lot of them are companies.
On his list, you on third, ahead of his family.
Quite right.
And everybody.
Yeah.
Some would say that being in that position on that very select list means that you don't necessarily treat him in the same way as you may treat some of the guests that come onto the GMB sofa and he gets off with an easier interview. What would you say to that?
I'd say look at the last one. We did in the Churchill War Rooms, did 35 minutes with him, roughed him up about 4 or 5 things, including transgender ban in the military, took him to task over that, took him to task over guns again, took him to task over other things. I compare it to any interview he gives to any American networks. Now, I appreciate he doesn't do many outside of the family, Fox and so on, but he does do quite a few. I think they're certainly as combative as any of those that I've ever seen. I mean, there's a limit to what you can do with a serving president, with the Secret Service in the room. I mean, you go too hard and it's the last interview you ever do. Plus, with Trump, I have a sort of unique relationship with him. It came about because I won Celebrity Apprentice in 2008, and that's when I got to know him. And I spent 3 hours opposite him every night for 6 weeks, and he was nowhere near as terrifying in that environment than he seems to some people as president. A lot of it's just chat. And you soon learn that about Trump if you know him. After that, I went back in a few times as his sort of boardroom advisor, went to CNN, interviewed him 30, 40 times there, and became quite a good friend of his. When I left CNN, I could count on one hand the number of Americans who called me. It's like, you're gone, you're done, we've sent you home, you're George III, we allowed you to live, but you're out, bang, gone. And Trump rang me quite regularly, dropped me little notes, rang me, how's it going? What are you up to? Need any help? Can I put a call in somewhere? When I landed a couple of jobs, he tweeted about it and said how proud he was and so on. It's only a little thing, but I take people as I find them.
But can I be cynical and ask?
You could be cynical as you like.
He knows you have got a big mouth.
Yeah.
And that you're very vocal. I'm very vocal here in Britain. So is he just playing the game with you?
No, I think that Trump, I think he genuinely thinks that when he's with me, it's the only time he doesn't get any shit. It's like, how can you bear to be in the same room as him, Donald? I think that he is the president. It doesn't really matter what I think of him. He is the president of the United States. He got there in a democratically elected way. You know, the Americans have spent 2 years trying to nail him on Russian collusion, and their knight in shining armor, Mueller, didn't deliver. So crack on, beat him in 2020. Stop whining and moaning and screaming. Beat the guy. Find a candidate that can beat him. And at the moment, I don't see one. Sorry. That's not Donald Trump's fault. That's the Democrats' fault and the Liberals' fault for not finding somebody properly. And, you know, that's all I can say about it. I like him personally. I don't like some of the things he does and says. But I do like some of the things he does and says. So he's unique territory as a president.
OK, Piers, we're going to pop up to Leeds now, where the People's Panel is ready to go, and our wonderful Ranveer is in charge. Hello, Ranveer. You've got a few questions for Piers, I believe. Hello, Ranveer. You've got a few questions.
Yes, we have. Hello, Piers. Nice to see you. We've got some fans here. Fans? Is that too strong a word? People who are interested in Piers. Right, now, Carrie, you watch GMB. You love the debates, don't you? The fiery opinions. And your question is related to one of the big debates that has been ongoing on the show.
It is. I just wondered, Piers, if you're raising your young daughter differently to your older boys in a society that has gone gender-neutral mad?
Well, it's a good question, isn't it? You know, there's a school near me in Brighton, near where I grew up, with 85 kids are gender fluid now in one school. Really? You think they all woke up and really felt this burning desire to be gender fluid, or did they just hear about it? Like David Bowie fans in the 70s heard about wearing makeup, you know. I think we've got to be very careful with this gender stuff. It sounds easy. It sounds easy until you get into the actual realities, the practical realities. I think you can be completely supportive, as I have consistently been, of transgender rights, and absolutely respectful of anyone who transitions, because I can't think of anything tougher to do in the world, frankly, than do that. And they have my huge respect. And I'll go into battle against Trump over banning transgender troops and so on. But you've got to discuss things like gender seriously. They have real repercussions. You know, Sam Smith last week, huge deal of saying, I'm now non-binary, gender neutral. Okay, so which category awards are you going to be entering? I was curious. And then what happens to awards? If enough people do what he's doing, do we then have to abandon gender awards? Will there not be best male and best female artists? And then who wins and loses when that happens? If the Oscars become gender neutral, actually what happens? I think actresses and female singers would get disadvantaged in that environment. Exactly at the moment when you have transgender male biological people who've transgendered to be female, when they are now competing against women at sport, it is grotesquely unfair. We all know it, but if you say it, even if you're Martina Navratilova, who's done more for LGBT rights in the world than anybody else, she got vilified, hounded, and had to be cancelled for pointing out the bleeding obvious, that actually, all around the world now, it's not working. There are sprinters in Connecticut smashing all the women's records who are transgender. How can that be fair on women? It can't. And you've got to have a sensible conversation about it without everyone losing their mind. You've got to say, what do we do to get around this problem? Or do we just say women's sport is over? Sorry, that's it. All your records are going to get smashed. They're not beating them just by a little bit, they're annihilating the records. I just don't think it's fair. So you've got to work a way that makes it fair for the transgender athletes, and particularly for women athletes who right now, I think, are facing almost the obliteration of women's sport. So to pretend these issues aren't there and don't need to be debated, I think is ridiculous. And the fact we can't have them in this hysterical world we now live in without people going mad is also ridiculous. Let's just talk it through in a civilized, reasonable way and get to sensible solutions, is my suggestion.
Well, Carrie says thank you very much, Piers, for that. We've got Philip as well, who wants to ask you a question. Now, he's a Man United fan.
Correct.
So he doesn't really agree with everything you talk about, Piers, but your question is actually quite a serious one about sport.
Yeah, so good afternoon, Piers. My question relates to sport on TV and whether you think great British sporting events such as the recent Ashes should be shown on terrestrial TV and not just on the likes of Sky and BT.
Really good question, because I've got huge respect for Sky Sports. I think they do an amazing job, as do BT Sport and the others. But there's no doubt that cricket was getting, 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 viewers on Sky. The Ashes series of 2005, which was gigantic, and the country went mad, were getting 10, 11 million, because it was the last terrestrial series. This time they put the World Cup final on terrestrial to big numbers. And I'm not sure what the answer is here, other than you can see what it does to the country in these Brexit-ravaged times. You can see how good it was for the national psyche that we became world champions and that so many millions could share it, rather than just a very few number of people. And it turns these guys into superstars, which encourages more people to play cricket, which is one of our great national sports. We made cricket deliberately difficult so that Americans would never want to play it or beat us. So let's treasure a sport where they don't play it and try and be great at it. And I think the broadcasters have to try and work out, I think, a deal here. A deal between doing the amazing work they do, and Sky is incredible. As a cricket fan, I think the coverage is second to none in the world. But, and it's a big but, very few people watch it by comparison to terrestrial sport. And that filters down to schools and to village teams. My village team used to have 4 teams on a Saturday. It's now down to 2, and they're struggling to even fill 2. Same story all over the country. This summer will have lifted that. But do we want cricket to end? And if not, I think a lot of it is incumbent on broadcasters to do deals where more stuff is put onto free-to-air television.
Okay, good. Happy, Philip. Yeah, you agree with that?
Agree, fully.
We've got a final question, I think, from Sandy, and it's a personal one, very personal one.
Hello, Piers. You are now the patriarch of GMB and I think Breakfast Television. And as a Jewish mother, I'm a bit worried about you. I'm worried about your future. I mean, you're 54, you're getting on now. How do you feel about what's going to happen to you? We saw those people from Generation Z yesterday talking about the future of television and just wondering, you know, how much longer you're going to be on the programmes.
You're supposed to be one of my fans, aren't you? I think, look, Larry King, who I replaced at CNN, to his great joy, I remember when Larry was asked about a month into my tenure, "Hey, Larry, what do you think of Piers' show?" And he went, "It's like watching my mother-in-law drive my favourite Bentley over a cliff." And to be fair, Larry's just getting divorced, I think, for the 8th time, so he's an expert in mother-in-laws. He was 52 when he went to CNN. I'm 54. He did 25 years. So I think I've just begun, Sandy. I think the world is my oyster. I just interviewed Cristiano Ronaldo, the football player, and for any of American network chiefs in the room, it's a brilliant interview. You should really be thinking about buying it, and I'm available for any chat you want to have. It's a great interview. And I actually think there's room for a global interviewer right now, and this is the, you think about it, Oprah's not doing it anymore, Diane Sawyer's not doing it anymore, Barbara Walters not doing it anymore, Larry's not doing it anymore. There is a gap in the market, folks, and you're looking at him. You're looking at the plug. You know what, Sandy? Here's the truth. I am one vegan sausage roll rant away from being fired. But I have always found that being fired has been a very good career move for me. Almost invariably, I get fired up. So, you know, I just think people get worried too much about being fired. We're all going to get fired. Everyone in this room at some stage is going to get fired. Looking at some of the faces, it's happened already to some of you. and the truth is, you've got to embrace it and love it. I remember getting fired from the Daily Mirror watching the TV news that night. I got more airtime than when the Queen Mother died. It was fantastic. And you just have to embrace but again, it comes back to what I started with, the highs and lows, doesn't it? If you can embrace the lows as much as the highs and learn from them and improve from them, you know, talking to Ronaldo, so the best football player I think that's ever lived.
Questionable. Questionable.
Apart from the best non-British. But he was very interesting about talent is not enough anymore. Talent's not enough to be the greatest. To be the greatest at whatever you do is hard work, it's fitness, it's dedication, and it is being able to deal with loss. He loses a lot of games. He has a lot of games he doesn't score goals, but it fuels him to be better. And I think that all of us in this room, a lot of high achievers here, some not so high, but there's a lot of high achievers here. And the truth is, the really high achievers that we all respect in our industry, you look at them and they've normally got the same kind of characteristics. They're bloody hardworking, they're very dedicated, they're very talented, and they've got it all. And we should aspire to be like that. And we've got to start at schools with the kids and teach them it doesn't matter if you win or lose, as long as when you lose, it hurts. It's got to hurt so that you get better. Nobody wants to lose. Kids at the moment love losing because they get a nice medal. Stop giving the children medals, everybody.
The world has indeed gone nuts, hasn't it? Can I just ask you very, very quickly, we've got to wrap it up, but do you watch yourself back ever?
No. In fact, funny enough, watching that was quite horrifying. I did, as I said, sounded completely lunatic. I've got to say, I'm on air for 2.5 hours every morning, so that was just a snapshot of some of my greatest hits. But no, I don't really watch myself back. I know when I'm doing stuff if it's working or not. You can feel it. You can feel an energy in the room. I love live TV. Loved it at CNN. Loved it when I was judging talent shows. Loved doing the morning show. There's a crackle about live television. When it goes wrong, I actually like that more.
Yeah, yeah.
I like it when it all goes horribly wrong and you can feel the executives going, oh my God!
And you're willing to go into the jungle for £5 million?
Well, I understand yesterday there was a conversation with Ant and Dec and Susanna in which they'd been trying to get me in the jungle. Let me make my position very crystal clear. £5 million is my required amount. You pay me that, Dame Caroline, Kevin Liger, whatever. You want to stump up the cash? I'm on the plane. $5 million for 3 weeks of munching kangaroo testicles? I'm your boy. I'm your boy.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, Piers Morgan.
Thank you.